Hi guys, my name is Emily Little and I'm a guide for a Northwest Rafting Company. Been working for them for a long time. And I also am a rowing instructor for our class 3 and 4 rowing schools. And this is a around 15-minute presentation about an acronym called CLAP. It is hopefully a tool for you to use as a way to approach running the river safely in a team boating with a team boating mindset. I'm going to minimize this little screen of me talking so you can see the full presentation. So after this presentation, I hope that you will have a better understanding of each of the different components of CLAP. We're also going to review some river signals and explain why it's important for you to do this with your group that you're going to go boating with. And throughout this whole presentation, it's having the mindset of going boating as a team. So when we're all out there together, rafting or kayaking or in whatever craft we like to go boating in, this is a good way to keep every member of our team safe. So C in CLAP stands for communication. There's a couple parts to communication. The first is our pre-trip communication. So before we even get on the water, it's good to have a discussion about where our group equipment is, who's carrying what. So here it says pin kit, and pin kit means our safety kit or a wrap kit. So it's our multifaceted. It's what we're calling our wrap kit, safety kit. There's multiple ways to say that. What type of repair do you need for your boat, and who's carrying that? So just because someone says they have a repair kit doesn't mean it's the right repair kit for your specific raft, because some of the different rafts require different types of glue and terrate and so forth. Also, what's your emergency communication, and do you know how to use it? If someone has a spot device for their emergency communication, does everyone know how to use it? Or is it someone's cell phone and can everyone access it, etc.? So these are things to think about, and where are these within your group? Another thing to discuss is to know that you have a general knowledge of the group that you're going boating with. So if someone has a medical condition, do they need medication? And where is that medication within the group? And do you know how to use it? Especially important for multi-day trips is sort of getting a feel. Maybe you have never boated with these people before, and getting a sense for who has the most medical experience. So if there are EMTs or nurses, etc. The best boaters out there will not only know the number of boats, but also they'll know how many people there are. Because if you have a situation where you have 4 rafts and you have one raft flip and swim, you may have 10 people. So it's not necessarily as important to know that there's 4 rafts, but to know that there's 10 people. So at the end of the situation, you can do a head count and know exactly how many people you have. If there's someone that knows the river really well, they can help give the group ideas for the best places to evacuate if something happens, for if there's any portages or wood, and also if they know the river at certain levels compared to someone else who might have seen it at higher or lower flows. The second part of communication is river signals. So here I'm going to just put my little screen back up so you can see me. River signals are really important to discuss because they often vary between groups. They might see, if you always paddle with the same people, it might be like, no, this is always stop or this is always go. But I've been in situations where people have, stop is a really big one, where people have different sayings for stop or different uses of a river signal for stop. So some I've seen are just a fist in the air, stop, crossing their chest like this, you can see me, or arms straight out. And the universal sign for stop, well, the international, excuse me, not universal sign, the international sign for stop is arms straight out like this, or you're holding your paddle up horizontally in the air. I'm just going to go over a few of the more important signals that we use, that are used more commonly on the river. Eddy out is doing this with your hand in a circle and pointing where you want to go. It's pretty universal that we always point positive, but again, something just to cover within your group so you know that people are pointing where they want you to go, not at the wood in the middle of the river. So eddy out is actually a really good example of a signal that may mean something else to different people. In Colorado, eddy out actually means speed up, which is the opposite of what we are trying to tell you. So this means speed up in Colorado, but in for the international signal, actually this means eddy out. So go to the side of the river. Again, pointing left or pointing right for where you want people to go. First aid is one that's often confusing for people, and the international sign is crossing your arms over your chest, or if you have two paddles, you can cross those in the air too, basically creating a big X. Okay, people just use this one. This is great. This is pretty well known as okay. It's a question and answer, asking your buddy if they're okay after something happens. But the international symbol is actually just like this, pointing to yourself saying, I am okay. But in general, I think this is a really good one. One last one is go. So just arms straight up in the air is generally go. And then we have our audio blast. So one whistle is generally just to get your attention, and 3 whistle blasts is something happened, so I need help. But like I said, these are just really important to go over because they're different with different groups. And I've heard a lot of situations where people get confused on the river. And if a situation happens, you might only be able to communicate through river signals if you're on the opposite sides of river and it's loud, or etc. So this is super important to cover before you go boating, especially with new groups that you've never been with before. I'm going to minimize the screen again so you can see the whole screen presentation. The next part of CLAP is L for line of sight. So line of sight, again, has 2 parts to it. The first is we're thinking about our boat spacing. So you want to have your head on a swivel, constantly looking behind you and in front of you to see those boats as you're going down the river. You want to put yourself in a visual contact sandwich, meaning you can always see the boat in front of you and always see the boat behind you. Now, this is going to need constant attention and constant adjustments. As the first boat enters the rapid, they're going to start moving faster. And so the second boat will need to catch up, and the third boat catch up, and so on. It's like a giant slinky. Same with slowing down. So you're constantly needing to look around you and see where those other boats are so you can make adjustments as needed. In addition to looking at the boats in front of you and behind you, when you're looking downstream, it's really important to make sure you have an eddy between yourself and the end of your line of sight. So for example, in this photo here, Zach and I were running, and a few other guides were running Eagle Creek in southeastern Oregon. We'd never run it before. It was a started out class 3 river, but definitely in a heavily forested area. So we were being really careful to be on the lookout for wood. We were stopping at we were keeping an eddy between us and the end of the line of sight, which may happen to be the corner or a giant ledge. And we came up onto this rapid, and we couldn't see past a big ledge. So we all eddied out in a big eddy, and everyone caught it. We were able to get out of our boats and scout the rapid, and we saw there was a giant log across the river that if someone had gone into this rapid, they would have gone under, and it could have been really bad. So we were able to get out and portage the rapid and put in below that log. It's not only important to keep this in mind when you're boating new rivers, but also when you're boating rivers that you're familiar with. When we're coming out of winter season and going into spring where there's high water, or there may have been some winter storms that caused wood to fall in the river or even created new rapids, we need to be keeping this in mind when we're going and getting out boating, keeping that eddy between you and the end of the line of sight so you have a safe place to go if there is a danger downstream. The next element of CLAP is avoidances. So avoidances are things to think about and to prepare yourself to avoid in order to keep yourself safe on the river. So the first are issues and obstacles, such as non-rollers. For example, if you're boating with a bunch of kayakers, there might be someone who doesn't have a roll. So that person, we need to be aware of that so we don't put that person in the front of the group, or that person has the extra eye on them in case they do flip and do go for a swim. It's also a good idea to just be looking out for your buddies and seeing to make sure their helmets are buckled, their life jackets are buckled, their shoes are tied. Just little things like that that can sometimes get forgotten. In addition to having that PPE, which is our personal protective equipment, securely fastened, it's important to make sure everyone has the appropriate clothing for the day. If it's a really warm day, make sure you have extra water so that you can avoid becoming dehydrated. If it's a really cold day, make sure everyone is wearing appropriate clothing for the weather, or it's really cold water. Maybe it's a good idea to pack a few extra fleeces just in case someone does go for a swim and you can avoid them getting hypothermia. And be aware if you're in a place that could have flash floods, if the weather is going to make the river spike. And also, if you're going on a river that you've never done before, how long is it going to take you? If you're in one of the short days of the year, you have enough daylight to do that river. And if you think you might not, maybe bring a headlamp and be prepared for the worst case scenario. The last part of CLAP is positioning. So there's two parts to positioning. The first is thinking about positioning yourself so that you can be in the best place to help your friends. So again, we're going back to our mindset of team boating. So when you're running rapids, where are you going to put yourself at the bottom of the rapid so that you can help your friends if something does happen? Are you choosing the only good eddy that is maybe the best place for swimmers to go to if there's a swim? Are you choosing it? Are there multiple eddies on the river that other boats can go to and you can sort of guide them? And when if you're in a big eddy that lots of people can go to, make sure you're not at the top, in a place where other boats cannot enter the eddy. But at the same time, make sure that you're in a position to help if something does happen, so you can leave that eddy quickly and help rescue the swimmers. In this photo here, one of our guides is on the Illinois River below Submarine Rapid, and he's sitting down there waiting in a really good spot. All the swimmers will pop up sort of where he is, and you can rescue them if there are swimmers. And he's waiting and looking upstream. In addition to looking upstream, you should also look downstream. What if you have to go rescue someone and something happens? What's your plan B? Where are you going to go next? So thinking about where you can go to safely get those swimmers to shore or in the boat, and not making sure that you're not endangering yourself if you do go out on a rescue. And then going back to our line of sight, positioning includes our boat order. So again, position yourself so you can see the boat in front of you and behind you, and making sure you're not too close or too far away from that person. You want to be in a position that you can effectively receive and pass on signals to your upstream and downstream boats. So if you're using your hand signals, you need to be able to do those effectively so that person can see them and see the message that you're trying to relay. To review, we have our CLAP. Communication, and communication has two parts. It's our pre-trip communication and the river signals, going over those before you guys even get on the water. Line of sight is when you're going out boating with your friends, keeping your head on a swivel, looking behind you, in front of you, and looking downstream to keep that eddy between you and the end of the line of sight. Avoidances, what can you do to be the best prepared you can be to avoid issues that may arise while you're out boating? Positioning, making sure you're in a good, safe spot to be an efficient rescuer, and also positioning yourself within your boat order so that you can be an effective team member. I hope that you guys enjoyed this presentation. Please don't hesitate to ask us questions. We'll be doing more weekly meetings with other topics for our virtual rowing schools, since we can't all be on the water right now. But we're all looking forward to getting out on the water again with you all. So thank you for watching, and I hope it was informative to you. You can also ask questions in the comments below. We love to answer questions, and hopefully this is a way to promote discussion and get everyone excited about going out and boating again. Cheers.